So, hello and welcome everyone for the first session of Product Management Consilium, the 8-day long event dedicated entirely to product management. Today, we have with us the co founders of PM School, an organization dedicated to help students and professionals crack their dream PM job. We have Mr. Nikunj Sharma, an alum of BITS Pilani, and Mr. Kushaal, an alum of IIT Bombay. They both are extremely skilled and have a lot of experience in this domain. The broad topic for today's session is how to build a career in product management. So, without any further delay, I'll hand over the session to them.
Thank you, Dashan. Just one sec. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Just let me know when you're able to see the slides. Yeah.
Yeah, they're visible.
Cool. Perfect. Uh, Thank you for that, Dashank. So, as Dashank said, PM School is basically a platform for helping folks such as yourselves who are trying to get into the first product management role. First, I'll introduce myself. I've been working in product management for the past nearly 6.5, 7 years now. My experience primarily has been with tech first platform products in edtech, mental health, and insurance. Over to Kushal to introduce himself before we jump on the major content. Yeah, Kushal, you there? Can you just sort of give one minute?
Hey Nikunj, yes, I'm here. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm very glad to be present here to talk about PM School and also guide everyone, or give a snippet of my own journey as inspiration to you guys who want to like take up a product management role in the future. So I'm Kushal. I passed out of IIT Bombay in 2011, aerospace. I started off with a venture capitalist firm, and then realized startups are the place to be for me, especially technology startups. Then I've transitioned myself into a product role, and I've been in product management for the past 7.5, 8 years now, working with B2B, B2C companies, building products from scratch and taking them to scale. So today, me and Nikunj will be covering a lot of aspects of how you can transition or onboard yourself onto the journey to become a product manager. Over to you, Nikunj.
Thanks, buddy. So, guys, before we start, just wanted to say this out loud. Any questions you have, just put it in the chat. We'll be stopping at different junctures within the session to take your questions. There is no silly question. Without any hesitation, Bindas, just sort of ask any question, right? With respect to hey, any sort of concerns you might have, the role, confusions about product management versus project management, or say just an understanding of how do you even prepare for PM interviews, right? Just go for the kill with respect to your queries and doubts. All right. Thank you, Consult Club, IIT Bombay. This is obviously super honored to be doing this, and for sure, thank you, Dashank, to reaching out to us. Before I jump into the main crux of this session, just wanted to sort of stress like 2 cents on how do you even think of getting into your first product role, right? You might have seen a lot of job profiles out there, or maybe job descriptions and different recruitment portals. Everyone says that you need to have some sort of prior product experience, right? And how do you sort of get that first product role? That's what is the biggest struggle for folks who have some experience, or even freshers who are trying to get into product, because PM roles are fairly senior. But there are a lot of folks such as Kushal and myself who started our journey in product management, and we obviously done something that have helped us. You might think, hey, today what do I do? How do I build my profile? Or what are those sort of specific signals that sort of connect to the recruiter's psyche that hey, this person is sort of someone relevant, and we can maybe give him a chance, at least have a shot at the interview, right? That's the first thing you might see. Right? How do you sort of start your first? Obviously, start getting calls for product. One thing that has worked for me early on, if you want to sort of directly apply for bigger product roles at like already established companies, it might not work out because the competition is crazy. I had joined a very early stage seed fund startup. They were not able to sort of hire experienced product managers because obviously they had their own budgets. They were on a specific sort of resource crunch, so they took a bet on me. You could obviously go to AngelList, Hire. A lot of these recruitment portals which list startup first PM roles. You might not be sort of in the Flipkarts or the Swiggies of the world, but the agenda is get 1 or 2 years of PM experience under your belt, and then you'll be better placed to sort of understand what product management is. Because again, PM roles are super difficult to crack. It's not your SD roles. India say requires 18 to 20 lakh SDs every year. Compare that to PM openings, you would see 3,000 to 4,000 PM1 or APM openings in India. And considering the COVID world, there aren't a lot of product openings out there. Another second way is, as you see, get a lateral transfer. What it essentially means is you might not crack a product manager role straight away, but what you can essentially do is you can crack like an analyst role or an SD role or a PM role. That is a role wherein you have to work with the product manager. You are not essentially a product manager yourself, but as long as you are in a peripheral role wherein you get to some exposure with respect to what the product is developing to, you might not be directly owning the product, but at least you have some interactions with the PM, right? And the idea here is, from the outside, if you're trying to get into, say, Swiggy or Flipkart, it might be super sort of competitive, competing against thousands of guys who apply for that singular one particular role. But imagine applying for a business analyst role at Flipkart, and then getting into an APM or getting into the product team after 1 or 1.5 years from within the company. That's a hell lot easier than trying to from the outside directly. Uh, Third, how do you sort of signal to any recruiter, or say if I'm seeing through a bunch of resumes, right? A lot of folks who are trying to say that they are super interested in product management, but how do I know from their profile or the work, their prior experience, that they are interested in building products, shipping products for different set of users, right? So even if you had like a side gig, a side project working with your engineer friends, wherein you worked on a product, the product is on the Play Store or App Store, it kind of signals to the interviewers that hey, you have built something. And in today's days and age, you might not even need engineers, right? You can use platforms like Thunkable or AppyPie. There are a lot more low no code platforms out there wherein you can directly drag and drop, build your own sort of product website, at least test out the waters with an MVP kind of thing with say a platform like Webflow, wherein you can build something. So we in fact kind of use Webflow for our PM School website. We sort of built it back in March, where we were just sort of testing the waters, just trying to get a sense of hey, how many people are really interested in getting into product management, right? We got some early traction, and now we are full blown going into PM School, right? The fourth way is getting hired from college. I'm guessing obviously you guys will get some companies hiring for product in your college, but you if you see the numbers, right, a lot of B schools are preferred for hiring product managers. Obviously, a lot of startups, early stage companies do go to engineering colleges as well to hire product managers, no doubt about that. But generally, you'll see the ISBs and the major sort of A League B schools getting companies hiring for the PM role. Because see, the PM role is at the center of business technology, UX, and it's kind of fairly senior. Because if you are working in a digital product company, you will be owning a lot of major decision making, right? So we need to have some industry experience. So it helps if you could get that next degree, but again, it's an expensive role. But one of the options that I've seen. So if you going back to the previous slide and this slide, if you just basically take like patterns across all the product managers on LinkedIn, you would see folks who have either worked into early stage startups, got into product, or folks who have shown some inclination by sort of getting a company in another role and then transitioning laterally, or people who have sort of built something on the side, or maybe obviously doing an MBA and then getting into product. These are generally the four sort of ways you would see people getting into product. Now, fundamentally, we've been speaking about obviously what are the patterns of the prior experience with respect to people cracking into product, but who is a product management, right? On a sort of 50,000 feet level, you are kind of at the center of, you must have been looking at a lot of these bookish theory definitions up online on a product manager is responsible for design, a product management is manager is responsible for shipping something, a product manager is responsible for business side. But on a fundamental level, a product manager is at the center of vision and execution. What do you mean by that? You are basically working very closely with the teams who are working, doing the grunt work, figuring out the engineering and say design sort of capabilities. And all the while, you're also managing hiring higher up. That is, you're looking at certain initiatives in the quarter that hey, what should the product be moving towards? To give you an example, say Swiggy, right? Think of what happened to Swiggy, say post COVID. Pre-COVID, Swiggy, the product was really working. A lot of folks were ordering, and it was scaling, growing into different markets. But COVID happened, and a lot of major use case of people ordering were not working. The number of transactions went down because the trust in people ordering something from outside was sort of not there. Right now, the product manager there thinking of now what the short-term roadmap is could have suddenly come up with new use cases that gets the users back into the app. That's where I'm guessing the product team had come up with this initiative called InstaChef, when they might not have got users to order directly, but they got users to sort of come onto the app, consume these contents with respect to certain recipes that they can leverage while they're cooking at home. In fact, folks who might be using Swiggy heavily might have also looked at other use cases that Swiggy developed, Swiggy Genie, Swiggy Stores, a lot of these use cases that were sort of parallel to what they were earlier offering as a core, but did not work, right? So you sort of understand from this example, you're not just looking at execution, you're also looking at vision, long term, short term, strategic plans and bets as the market and sort of full ecosystem kind of gets impacted by external factors. Yeah. So, guys, before we jump into preparations or different kind of roles and the latter part, I just wanted to stop here for any questions. We have this after every 10-15 minutes. So, Dishank, if you want to sort of just raise certain questions, if anything has been raised in chat, or I believe you had shared a list of questions also. So, if you want us to answer them.
I was thinking like keeping those list of questions towards the end,
Okay.
like when the major part of the session is done.
Okay.
So, guys, if you have any questions, put those in the chat box. Currently, I have one question. I guess you'll be covering this in the later part, but the question is B2C versus B2B PM
Yeah.
approach.
So,
If there are any other questions, yeah, put
yes,
those in chat.
I'll for sure take that. So, see, B2C, B2B, the product management, obviously, the main skill sets are overlapping. On a fundamental level, you are building a product. For sure, you need to be good in working with engineers. You should be good in understanding the market. These are fundamental things that a B2C as well as a B2B product manager should have. But there's some slight differences. In B2B, you have direct access to sort of your end users because you know who you're building for. In B2C, say if you're working on a consumer tech product, you're building for the mass, right? So you need to sort of look at user research in a different way. That's one difference. Second, in B2B, what really happens if you're working on a platform product, think that say I've built Slack as a product. Assume that I'm a product manager at Slack. So Slack might be a product that I sell to a certain persona. Say that's the CXOs of a certain company. That decision maker persona is different, but the actual users of the product are everywhere in the company. So in B2B, what really sort of is differentiating is the user of the product might or might not be the same. The decision maker who buys your product might or might not, obviously is generally in most cases is not really the user of the product. And eventually, how do you sort of showcase ROI for the person who is buying your product compared to the person who is sort of using your product? So that's the second fundamental difference. Third, in terms of stakeholder management, you will see a lot of B2B companies will be super sales heavy. B2C companies won't have a big sales team. You will see B2B companies being sales heavy because they'll have like a different way of acquiring their customers. In B2C, you'll rely on a lot of digital channels, Facebooks or say Google AdWords or say some organic channels to get your end users because the ticket size is less. In B2B, the ticket size is larger. Generally, there's like an enterprise customer, a business buying your product, right? So there'll be like a sales team, like a heavier sales team who would be selling your product because people won't buy your product right away. There'll need to be some convincing. The sales cycles are bigger. And for sure, I'm guessing Kushal also comes from a B2B background. He can also add some more here. Kushal, over to you if you want to add anything to this, man.
Right. I would say most of the points have been covered by Nikunj. Additionally, what I would add to this is uh, while the end consumer base is slightly different in the sense for B2C consumers, you have a different profile compared to B2B end consumers. The approach for building products will still remain the same as you know we are still building for people, except probably a well-defined set of people in the case of B2B instead of B2C consumers. Yeah.
Cool. Dashang, do you want me to move ahead, or are there any questions in chat?
There's one question like, can fresher apply to become a PM in off-campus placements? And if so, then please tell more about it.
For sure, man. You will see a lot of people getting into product. In fact, these days, especially in India, companies have started coming out with APM, Associate Product Manager roles. This is basically an entry level, the first sort of tier of product role that is essentially for freshers or people who with no prior experience. Obviously, the competition there will be crazy, massive, because a lot of people want to get into product. But having said that, yes, you can apply off campus at a lot of companies. We have seen students as part of the PM school cohorts who have cracked interviews as like freshers and people. In fact, we had I don't know if you know, we did like a cohort with IIT Kharagpur, and three of our cohort from IIT Kharagpur were able to sort of crack different APM roles. So yes, that is possible, but as I said, it depends on your prior some profile signals that you can sort of suggest. So because there's different stages, right? First, you getting shortlisted. Second, you being able to crack that assignment, and third, cracking the interview. What I would suggest is we'll be sort of covering the interview process later and certain sort of cases or challenges that you should be aware about. So let's sort of skip the interview process and interview prep from the questions. Other than that, if anyone has any question.
I guess we can take up the questions in the next
Cool.
break.
All right. All right.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. So fundamentally, how do I prep? I've been getting these questions on LinkedIn. People obviously start with, "Hey, I've given 4 5 product interviews," but it's super vague. It's not as structured like a software engineer interview. It's not like your analyst interview. Where do I start from? If I'm applying at a company X, get different types of questions, right? How do I even sort of go about preparing for a product management interview, right? Because it's multiple functional skills. So, what I would suggest is step one is you will need to sort of first be able to practice a lot of case study questions. We'll be covered different buckets of questions that you get asked, but the idea is you will have to be good at solving, say, 4 or 5 types of questions that you generally get in product interviews, and these questions are kind of the same that you get to solve in an assignment as well. So you need to practice a lot. When I was able to sort of crack my first PM role, I remember I must have solved like 50, 60 questions in each of these different buckets. Uh, every interview starts with the fundamental tell me about yourself, right? It starts with the person trying to know you, who you are. And what I've seen is, especially interviewing at Haptech, where really the Haptech product team, a lot of people directly start from certain points which don't really matter to me. I have a checklist in my mind that, hey, if the person shows X, Y, and Z inclinations, or these are the 3 skills I'm looking for in the person, and it's super relevant to me, I'll obviously give him a chance. But the idea is people start from a lot of points or signals which not don't really matter to the product manager role. So make sure your tell me about yourself pitch is super concise to the point. Think of this as like a 40 to say 50-second pitch wherein you are highlighting that you're good at problem solving, you're good at engineering collaboration, and you're good at understanding users and thinking from first principle approach to figure like from a golden circle perspective why you're building X, what are you building, and who are you building for, right? So I want to sort of see that in see people when they talk about themselves and their profile, they go into a monologue of they've been born here, their college and their college projects. You should be highlighting points that matter to the company you are applying at. You should be highlighting points. This is the question where you are in control. Other questions, it's super difficult to even predict what kind of questions you get, right? You are for sure, everyone knows that the interviewer will ask you about yourself. That's the first question. So this is the pitch that you have to sort of crack. Moving on, guesstimates. See, guesstimates will require a lot of practice. Guesstimates are more about your problem solving skills of how do you sort of break down a problem on a fundamental level. See, if you get a question like how many users play PUBG in India? I was asked this question as part of my interview process in a gaming company. The person said that, hey, imagine that we today we don't have a competitor sort of product to PUBG, and you see PUBG being banned in India. Say we are to come up with a competitive product to PUBG. How do we sort of think of that market, right? And the person asked, can you evaluate the number of users for PUBG any given day? How do you sort of approach this question? The idea is don't get overwhelmed by a question such as this. You'll need a lot of practice. You have to break down a problem in a top down manner, thinking, hey, how many users in India have access to smartphones or say desktops or laptops? Where is PUBG played today? That's a fundamental question, right? So you will need to get a count of how many people even have access to these devices where PUBG can be played. The second sort of follow-up question will be, hey, PUBG is a game that is played with internet connectivity. So of say 120 crores is a top sort of number in India's population. Of that, certain percentage goes because a lot of people might not have own a device. Again, a certain percentage will go because a lot of people might not have access to internet penetration. Then again, you break down the remaining population in say different age buckets of say people in 22 to 30, 30 to sort of 40, and your estimates from depending on, hey, people above the age of 30 might or might not, the propensity to play this game would be lesser. People in 20 to 30, that will be the ideal audience. So that's your breakdown of estimate. What I would suggest is look up online, look at a lot of guesstimate questions, and with practice you'll get better. The third category is analytical questions. These questions are more about you understanding the product. How does the product succeed, and different elements of the user experience. So you will need to really deep down into understanding a product end to end. These questions get asked when you sort of follow a certain product and you are really reading that space end to end. Say if I'm super sort of interested in applying an OTT product, then say I'm interviewing at MX Player or Hotstar or Netflix kind of company, I need to follow that space in and out and really understand the mechanics of different KPIs or metrics that product managers are tracking there. So reading, practice, and knowledge base here is super important. The fourth question is more kind of how do you sort of structure a particular question's answer? Say this would generally start with what is your favorite product? You would say something like say Netflix. Then the follow-up question from the interviewer is how would you improve Netflix? Here the interviewer is not really looking for how or would you improve Netflix for yourself, but the interviewer is looking for how would you improve Netflix for the larger user base. So step one here is picking an end goal. When you say improve Netflix, that's super vague, right? That you can improve Netflix in n number of ways. Any product, there's always scope for improvement. You have to first pick an end goal. Discuss this with the interviewer. Hey, are we talking about increasing revenue? Are we talking about improving engagement? Let's pick an end goal. Once we pick an end goal, then it gets easier. So, just ask for 2-3 minutes from the interviewer. In your mind, cook up different solutions, creative solutions, and tie those sort of solutions to the end goal that you decided. That's how you essentially approach these questions. You would get a lot of sort of blogs or people writing about how do you even approach these questions, but fundamentally you'll need to practice a lot, and that's the best way to really sort of be able to think quickly on your feet for solving these questions in an interview. Second is where do I prefer, right? There are a lot of online resources, but we have created like a list. Don't worry, don't get overwhelmed. You would find God knows how many websites out there, but something that has helped me over the years, I've just put it out there. Um, uh, so weekly challenges, you can follow the LinkedIn page for PM School. What we do is every week we release a challenge, a assignment of sorts, wherein people try to solve these, and they get practice on how different kind of case questions. And we also give them like a mock interview, people who have really done well in the assignment. Secondly, for sure, you can do like a focused course. There are a lot of online courses out there. PM School has its own flagship program called the PM School program. You can check out our website on pmschool.io. Third is, I remember early days when I was trying to sort of prepare for interviews. These are the three books that I had read. You can check these out on Amazon. I think you might also buy. No need to buy. You might sort of find these on with a friend of yours bookstores, or you will find these on Amazon Kindle as well. Swipe to Unlock, Decode and Conquer, and Cracking the PM Interview. These are like standard books for preparing into product management. And one more thing that has helped me was I had tried to sort of reach out to the community. That is certain seniors of mine who were product managers, or you can reach out to folks in your network on LinkedIn and just ask them what is their day to day like, and give them a sense of, hey, you are super inclined into working in that company in the product team, and you can learn a really sort of see, learning in one session or one or two sessions, it takes time, right? You need to sort of get close to a mentor or senior to really sort of get the max out of their understanding and their perspective of product management within their company. So find a mentor. That has helped me, can help you as well. uh, Obviously, reading a lot about different companies, different products that are developing in India. From an India sort of perspective, your story, the Ken and Junior VC, these are amazing resources. Then again, from a world global standpoint, Hacker News, TechCrunch, and VentureBeat, this can really sort of help you build on not just Indian products but global products, and how different sort of dates and releases are coming up with respect to a global perspective, not just an Indian ecosystem way. Any questions so far, Dishank? Anything? Or guys, please don't be hesitant. Bindas, go for it. There's no silly question. This is the right time to go for it. Bindas, पूछो यार.
Yeah, so there's a question by
Okay,
Mukul
okay,
in the chat. How is the growth in terms of learning in product different from
okay.
consulting? And does product limit your scope of learning to only web-based companies?
So
That's the
see,
question.
when I'm talking about product management, obviously my expertise and Kushal's expertise are in the digital product ecosystem. What I mean by that is building digital products. That is a web application and a mobile application. Now the consulting domain, it's fairly vast. It's not just pertaining to digital ecosystem. It's also non-digital sort of projects, right? From risk management to whatnot. So totally different fields. Consulting is totally different. In fact, product management, Kushal and I are experts in building digital tech products.
Right,
Yeah.
thanks for answering that. There's a follow-up question from the first Q&A.
Okay.
That is, that was the
Okay.
B2B and B2C part. So Yogesh is asking that he is looking for the approach difference when it comes to market research, product pricing decisions, and post-launch analytics between
Okay.
B2B and B2C, and suggestions on reading materials or online articles that you, I
Okay.
think, already covered. So yeah, that's
So
the
there are two
follow-up
parts, right?
question.
So one is obviously approach to market research. The first part, see, market research is with respect to any product, whether be it B2B or B2C, you're looking at in the market. What is the sort of positioning of the competitors out there? What are the alternatives? See, if I'm thinking of, I'm the product manager for company X and I have a product in place, I'm looking for, hey, entering that market or maybe capturing a certain percent of the user base. I'm looking at today users prefer my competitors. Why? How are they positioned? Again, the market research, the way it is done, that is fairly similar in B2B or B2C. It just the competitors will be different for sure. Obviously, in a B2B ecosystem, the competitors, depending on the product, the domain, the industry you are on, and again, post analytics perspective, there's like a larger difference in B2B, B2C. In B2C, you will rely on a lot of what you call analytical tools to really track user behavior, because you have, say, think of a product like Swiggy or Flipkart, right? I'll get a lot of behavior analytics data with respect to user clicks, user views, and a lot of data wherein I'll rely on these quantitative sort of models on data I'm getting from the analytical tools. uh, I might want to sort of do some user research wherein I'll call a specific user personas in my office, or I'll work with a user research agency to do the research. In the B2B context, is a hell lot easier because you have direct access and a rapport or connection with the end users. Say, example, think of myself as a CRM product company. Think, say, I'm a Zoho product manager, right? Now, in the Zoho product manager, I'm working, my product is being used by a company X, say that company is Flipkart. So I can directly reach out to Flipkart because I can tell them that, hey, your end users for the Zoho CRM, can we sort of conduct research or interviews with them? It's like 10 times more easier to do user research in the B2B context. At least I found it. It's the vagueness or the sort of probability of you you going wrong with user research is limited, the risk is lesser because you have direct access to end users. In the B2C context, because the number is, say, if you think of how many users are there on Swiggy, right? There are millions. So who do you call for user interviews? Who do you sort of, and how do you sort of conduct these interviews? You can go wrong at any of these steps. So the research part here gets like 10 times more difficult. At least that's what I feel. Kushal, for sure, you can add from your experience at Tiny All being a B2C and now get my backing at a B2B product company.
Right. I would say primary difference personally again when I was working with a B2C company versus a B2B company is around how we approach the problem. B2C companies have our B2C platforms or products have probably a varying product a problem which we are trying to solve. It could be, you start with, okay, let's say food delivery, right? And then you figure out what the feedback you get from the consumers are, and then you keep iterating and improving the product. Whereas and getting feedback from the end consumers and understanding what their behavior is and iterating on the product is the biggest challenge in the B2C platform. Whereas in a B2B company, you have, let's say your product has a few clients already, it becomes very easy to approach these clients, talk to them, and then get feedback directly. And you pretty much know where or which direction the product should head. There's not too many surprises there, right? If you think about it, example of that would be the video conferencing app wars, which is happening between Zoom, Google Meets, and similar such platforms. It's very clear one is introducing new features, the other one's just copying it, right? It's heading in the direction of providing a great experience. So yeah, so this is at a high level some differences which I've faced working with these two different types of platforms. Of course, there are many. Probably we'll cover a few examples towards the end if you can.
Okay. So there was one question on UX. See, obviously UX designing is you won't be owning designing as a task because that will be a sort of KRA for the design team, but you are enabling UX to take the right decision. So see, essentially how product management works is you come up with initiatives what the team will be working on, and you give as much information to the design team so that they can do their job better. So your understanding of UX, because there'll be a lot of cases scenarios when you're working very closely with design, so you will have to have some sense of good UX, bad UX. Parth also had a question around how to develop UX skills. I would suggest follow a lot of products, curiosity. Secondly, join a lot of these communities like Dribble or Behance. These are design first communities. And again, the best way to learn is really work in a product team, working very closely with a designer, working with the product, right? Because again, if you're just absorbing or grasping a lot of information online, you would not really get it because you might not have first time facing examples having worked on a product yourself. That's like massive. But you can follow these communities to follow. There's UX Spin, there's Dribble, there's Behance. Then Roshan had a question: how different are roles of tech and non-tech? Massive difference. Depends on the company how they sort of bifurcate the responsibilities of the PMC. The product manager at Browser Stack or the product manager at AWS, which are fairly technical products, right, are different from the product manager responsibilities from in Swiggy or Flipkart, because tech PMs sometimes also own the tech sort of KPIs. And if you're working as a product manager on a product which is fairly technical, so for AWS or Browser Stack, an example, right, the product itself is being built for end users who are developers. So you need to be fairly technical. But see, from my perspective, I've never worked on pure tech products. In fact, I am a senior product manager at Haptic, which is a conversation AI platform, but I've never written a single line of code in my life. I come from an electronics background. So you need to be good enough with respect to understanding what the product is, who the end users of the product are, and can you give requirements to engineers? Can you collaborate with engineers so that they can do their job better? That's essentially what you need. So tech skills is more towards your ability to collaborate with engineering and understanding how products get developed. You'll need to go through that cycle of building or shipping something. That's the thing. I hope I've answered Roshin, Path, and Ashwata's questions. Cool. Dishank, any question that I miss? Cool.
We'll take those up in the
Cool.
end. I guess
Thanks.
we can go forward. Yeah.
So yeah, going to the most relevant thing, how do you get shortlisted for an interview, right? See, your resume. I see resume. See, today, if you see my resume, also when I send it to companies, I have worked across 4 different companies, nearly 6.5 years of product management experience, but it's single page. Keep it to the point. Keep it quantitative. What I mean by quantitative is you see a lot of resumes wherein the bullet points are managed dash or sort of collaborated dash, but assign certain values to those bullet points. Hey, I was part of this project wherein we helped achieve or reach a metric from A to B. Say I was part of a college festival wherein we were sort of leading a team to get sponsorship for a particular festival, wherein I was collaborating across different stakeholders. So this highlights your stakeholder management skill. That's a soft skill required for a PM. Secondly, when you're stressing on this point, you're saying that we were able to bring X dollars. So that's quantifying the bullet point. So whenever you have these bullet points in your resume, see, the fundamental thing for a product manager that you will get sort of exposed to and stressed in product interviews is, are you data driven? So whenever you are building out your resume, make sure that you stress on numbers and certain bullet points have certain sort of metrics where you impact it. Emphasizing relevant experience is super. Don't send the same resume to 10 companies for that product manager role. Customize your resume as per the company you're applying for. Read the job description really well. Stress on the internship that connects to the company's role that you're applying for. Say you had done 2 internships during the last 4 years, and you might want to stress on both the internships, but stress on the internship which really matters for the role that you're applying, right? So concise, to the point, relevant prior experience, obviously that wins over anything. Questions to cover for sure. We have already discussed. Tell me about yourself. You might get behavioral questions like why XYZ company. I would suggest following a lot of product managers from that company so that you get a sense of what they are doing, and then you can connect. You have to spin it like a narrative, right? See, hey, I need to work in a company X because I know these guys, or I know the work these guys are doing, and that's the work I want to do. Why product management? That's a fundamental question you might get asked not just in PM interviews, any other role that you apply. Why this role, right? Uh, Tell this is the most cliched question you'll get asked. Tell me your favorite product. Why do you love it? How do you improve? Here, you're not supposed to tell about your favorite product. You're supposed to share a product that you know about and a product that you've been following from the last 2 3 years. A product on which you have done your own research. Again, when you are supposed to suggest how can you improve the product, we spoke about this. Think about answers in a structured manner. Pick a particular end goal. You can improve a product in n different ways. Pick where do you want to improve: acquisition, retention, monetization, which part, and engage the interviewer trying to sort of answer this. And see, one fundamental thing in product interviews is you're not supposed to answer fast. You're supposed to answer right and answer in a structured manner. So whenever you get a question, don't jump into the solution. I've been asked this question, giving you an example that, hey, how would you build an alarm clock for people with visual impairity? And what really happens is the candidates directly jump into the solution saying that the alarm clock will have voice features. That don't tell the interviewer about the solution. For the first 2 minutes, take some time to jot down your thoughts. Then in the next 2 minutes, talk about the end user. Who's the end user? When you're talking about visual impairity, there are different types of visual impairity. Are we talking about total blindness? Are we talking about color blindness? Pick a particular type of user and narrow down the scope. And then, see, structure is super important. You will get 50,000 feet ambivalent, open ended questions in product interviews. And these guys are looking at how do you break these down. So, ask follow up questions, take time, and answer in a structured manner rather than directly. And see, the best way to learn is practice, practice, practice. Obviously, breathe in, breathe out. This is just a meme. The interview day, what I would suggest is online you'll find a lot of material about different people who have given the interviews. On the PM School website, we have put different interviews for folks who have given interviews at specific companies. Look at these interview sort of experiences. Look at the case studies that people have solved. A lot of folks share it on LinkedIn. We also have been sharing a bunch of case studies on our website. Also, we have created like a repository of different different assignments people have solved. That's it, Kushal. So the next part is to Kushal, wherein Kushal will just give you a brief about the assignment. There's like a sample assignment question, and how do we even go about solving that assignment. Kushal, take it away. You can share your screen and go for it.
Sure, Nikunj. Just give me a moment while I share my screen. All right, I hope you can see my screen now.
Wait, I'll just stop presenting. We can see your screen. Go for it.
All right, great. Cool. All right. So let me just start with an introduction of what this case study is about. So essentially, companies, when they provide, when you have a couple of rounds of interviews with companies for the role of product manager, it could be even associate product manager. After the first couple of rounds, you are given something called a case study, which you take home and then spend a couple of days of working on it and then presenting it back to the company, right? And typically, what I'll do is I'll just run through the breakdown of what typically is asked in a case study. So in this particular scenario, we have been provided a case study for a company called, or a product called nearby.com, which is a hyperlocal e-commerce company. We've been provided high-level statistics about the current product, which is how many people, what is the target market size, and what is nearby doing exactly. And what I've been asked, or what this person who's been provided this case is asked, is they've been provided as a product, they've been onboarded as a product owner from nearby. And as a strategic decision maker, you need to work towards a USP for a product to achieve certain goals, which is acquisition and engagement or retention. And it could vary with respect to companies as well. Different companies come up with different types of case studies. So in this case, we have that we need to target the user acquisition and engagement aspects of the product, which is nearby. And essentially, you are asked to come up with changes in the product, which typically entails improvements, adding new features, and providing certain descriptions to it, right? And what is also expected is you provide certain designs, flowcharts explaining the feature. So essentially, a presentation. So case study is like a presentation about what your thought process is, how you process problem statements, and how you present it back to the interviewer, right? So you would want to use tools like flowcharts, design mocks, wireframes, etc., to explain the feature. And of course, you have to identify what you're trying to do, how you're planning to achieve it, and how is that particular feature helping you to achieve that goal. And finally, you would want to complete the case study by providing a way to measure if that particular feature would be is successful or not. Essentially, what are the metrics you'd like to measure, which will help us decide, or the company decide, if that particular feature is achieving the goal for the product or not, right? And expected response. So there is no hard and fast rule of how you would want to present it back to the company. Sometimes the company asks for a specific limit on the number of slides, if it's a presentation which you are expected to share back, or the number of pages if it is a PDF output which is expected from the interviewee, right? And they would define how big or how large these file should be, and what all at least it should contain. So we've gone through, we've understood we've understood the case study now, and let's see how typically this could be approached, right? So in this case, again, bear in mind this is just a mock case study, and you need not target presenting back to companies in this very similar fashion how we are presenting. Every company looks for a unique way in which the candidate submits back the case studies. But this is a good way. This is a good framework which you can use to keep in mind about while you are working on case studies. So the first part is obviously to improve the user acquisition aspects, right? So acquisition is getting more users to use the product. So we start with context setting. Let me just present this. It's better for you guys. Right. So what's context setting? So essentially, you're defining the problem statement here. User on a specific product. What is the specific product offer? What is the core action? So every product in the market has a single core action which defines the product, right? For example, for Netflix, it is people consuming content or spending time on the platform. Whereas on Swiggy, it is in completing a food delivery order, right? So core action, defining the core action is the next step, and then defining objectives of what you are planning to achieve in this in solving this case study, which is maximizing revenue, and then also coming up with suggestions in which you can do that, right? So for people who do not know, nearby is a platform which offers deals or discounts for services around you. It could be restaurants, spas, activities, etc., and as well as gift cards, right? Now, this is an example of a feature which this person has submitted, which is okay. What I'm going to do now is to get more people to use the platform, I will get some number of friends to purchase a specific deal on the platform as soon as I complete purchasing my own deal. Right? So that they get, this is a little like a referral program, which is, or we could say, a member get member program. Someone brings in a new member and then they get rewarded for it, right? And essentially, you have to create something called a viral group. Again, don't get carried away with such jargon. You will get acquainted towards it, if you read product management resources, etc. What a viral loop is, essentially, you would want to, an action should always lead the user to come back and perform a different action again in the platform, right? Let me explain that a little better by moving on to the design aspect as well, right? Now, this is an example of a wireframe or a mock-up, right? And here you can use tools like Balsamic or Figma, which can help you set up, design mocks or wireframes of the product, and which you can put your imagination in to see how the feature should look like. Okay, here what we see here is a list of restaurant offers, and then of course this is the feature which is planned to be introduced, which is get some X number of friends to buy the deal and get it for free, right? We'll come to A/B testing in a bit. This is not probably very relevant for this case study, but essentially you would want to highlight the feature so that people or consumers use it, right? Now going back to the details of the wireframe as well. So what happens when I tap on the yellow tab? So essentially I have an option to share this particular deal with my friends, and also state what the reward could be, right? So this is an example of how you break down a landing screen and then detail screen, and then explain it to the interviewer as well in detail. And it's always good to have some kind of commentary along accompanying a design. It's just much easier to understand, right? And then once and this is sort of like an update. So if let's say the friends have purchased the deal, you have an option for the first person who's sharing it, that hey, you met all the criteria and you can obtain this particular deal for free, right? So this is like sort of an example of a feature. Of course, you can go really wild in terms of coming up with new ideas in presenting it to the interviewer, but this is one way we could do it. Finally, you would want to talk about what the feature would achieve, right? How it would impact certain metrics, which is user acquisition in this case, right? So what the viral loop which we are talking about here is a new user signs up, they get some incentive to invite more users again, right? And then it keeps going on. So the more users they invite, the more rewards they can achieve or get. This is an example of a viral loop. So someone keeps doing the action again to keep receiving the rewards again. It's not a one-time thing. And finally, you would want to talk about metrics. What are you measuring? You would want to measure how many users actually signed up, is called acquisition. How many users actually purchased the deal, is called revenue conversion. And how much additional revenue this particular feature has actually driven. So you track all of this and be able to figure out whether this particular feature is successful or not. And of course, the trade-off metrics is since we are offering free deals, right? You will lose a certain portion of your revenue to these free deals. So you have to balance acquisition costs and the trade-offs, and do some basic math to essentially understand if this overall feature is viable or not, right? And the other trade-off metric is new users added to nearby, completing core action again. So essentially, this is more around a scheme where people create probably same user creates multiple accounts and then tries to game the system. So you have to keep an eye on what are the metrics you would want to feature, which would define the feature success, or also talk about if introducing the feature, what kind of drawbacks it can introduce as well. Right, and this person has also come up with a second feature. It's always good to brainstorm and come up with multiple features when you're approaching a problem statement, like an improvement in a product, or what can be changed, or what can be introduced as something which can make the product better, right? So in this, the second feature is coming up with upcoming and limited time deals, right? So essentially, we're talking about a section where the user can look for exclusive offers in advance which are coming in the future and then sign up for it. This sort of keeps the user engaged in the platform so that they come back to the product and then keep checking for it. And keeping it time bound would create a sense of urgency, so that the user knows that this is a limited shelf product, so they would have to purchase it before someone else does, right? And a mock-up of that would look something like this: that hey, what, I have a screen which on the home screen, tapping on which will take me to my upcoming offers, where I could know what is the offer, how many people are actually interested, because they would have set up reminders, and then when is the deal actually planned to be launched, right? And this is, you have some filters, whether it's tomorrow or in the next week, etc. And this setting of a reminder is sort of an engagement loop. So essentially, whenever you get a reminder, you go back into the platform and you have some updated information, and you are also given an opportunity to check out other deals, you set up more reminders, and you come back again. So that's sort of something which which introducing into the product will increase the engagement as well, if you think about it. And finally, user gets notification whenever a deal is active. They have time remaining aspect. They are then pushed to subscribe or purchase this particular deal and then close it. And this is very attractive because a sense of urgency always creates what do you say, end consumers to sign up sooner than if there is nothing, no sort of push for the user to actually sign up. So it's a good way to keep users engaged and then complete the conversion as well. Right. So yeah. So what is the goal end of the day? User engagement and retention. We want users to keep coming back and then completing conversions on the core action, which is purchase of a deal, right? And setting up a reminder would be a great way to keep users coming back again. So this is how you define your feature, break it down, and then present it to the interviewer, and also talk about what goals this particular feature can achieve, right? And finally, we have metrics on how many users actually visit that particular section, and how many users have actually set reminders, how many users have completed the deals after setting reminders, etc. There are a lot of metrics which you can use to measure if something is successful or not, right? But the trade-off, of course, if you think about it, is if people are waiting for more lucrative deals in the future, they might probably not wait. They would probably wait and not purchase the deals which are actually currently live, right? You'll have to think about those aspects as well, and then design the feature so that you can say that, what, these are the trade-offs which I could identify, but I've also sort of introduced a small additional change in the feature which can help us mitigate this particular trade-off, right? There are many ideas around it, but that is the approach which you would be doing while you're approaching such case studies and feature improvement or new feature asks from the companies, right? And of course, we talked about acquisition, engagement, and now we're talking about a new revenue stream. So revenue model is making more money, right? Driving more purchases, and of course, if you're talking about adding a new revenue model, you have to identify what can be introduced, which can bring more end users and more purchases happening on the platform. And away again, and the idea which is presented here is we have someone called service providers, who are the providers, who are the deal providers end of the day on the platform, and we are planning to introduce a feature for the said service provider, right? Or we can call them merchants here. They could be restaurants, spas, also travel agents, running some deals on the platform as well, right? Now the feature here is to be able to set up a sponsored deal. This is sort of like an ad campaign which can boost that specific merchant's listing above, depending on how much they're willing to spend for it, right? And then of course you have like certain metrics, like or rather features, sub features, like how much money do what can be the cost which can be capped, what is the deal which has to be promoted, and how many times the how many times should the ad be displayed and clicked before it is disabled. So you as a platform need to restrict and control the number of ads and sponsored deals also being presented, because it's not a great user experience if you think about it. And of course, you'd want to provide some reporting for the merchants to see how it's performing, the deal is performing, and also link the merchant account for payments, right, for settlement. And for the end user, they would see sponsored deals, and of course there would be some indication that it's a sponsored listing, and you'd be tracking each of these clicks and engagement for each of these deals, and then try to understand what the user behavior is, right? And you can do some revenue estimates. Again, this is a very I would say high level breakdown of an estimate. This is how an estimate looks like. You have some assumptions and you have a calculation, right? CTR means click-through rate. And again, all of these are industry standard terms. I don't would probably not best to cover it today. But once you get hold of a couple of case studies, right? And we have a couple of case studies also presented in the PM School website. You will get a hang of what is expected in terms of what assumptions to state and what is the industry standard terms which everyone uses. And we do a basic calculation as to like if 1% of the users actually click on such ads, and we have certain number of users per day, and the user clicks on X number of sponsored deals per day, and we charge the merchant 10 rupees per ad to be displayed, and for a 3-year revenue estimation is around 66 crores, right? So this is how you arrive at a guesstimate solution as well if you are asked for it in the case study. Such revenue estimations you are asked even in a face-to-face interview as well, which Nikunj has touched upon in the past. Right, and finally we'll talk about how you can launch and promote this particular feature, right? And what are the channels you use to market, and what are the partnerships you use to reach out to, so that you find out the right channels to get more engagement or reach for this particular sponsorship program. Right, so you reach out to existing service providers. So essentially all of this would work only if the merchants and service providers are onboarded and they start running such special sponsored deals on the platform. And the best way to reach out is whom you already have. And of course you can have various touch points where you talk about it with the merchants, and in other communication touch points where you can just ask them, pique their interest and ask them to reach out to you. And of course, and referrals can be a big deal in growing your market base as well, right? Every merchant who starts paying to sponsor the deals can refer other merchants to get discount coupons, which can be used to run promotions. So this is more like what we talked about earlier around referrals, except for merchants. And of course, there is tying up with supply side providers or ad exchanges or companies which run ads to run specific ads to the target crowd. Metrics are obviously number of sponsored deals, ROI per merchant, and of course trade-offs is the difference in ROI per merchant. So for merchants who do not spend on the sponsored deals, they might see a hit on revenue because users might be more attracted towards the sponsored deals themselves. And of course, if you have if you have too many sponsored deals, then the actual deals which are not sponsored get low lighted, and they would not be probably be accessible to the users anymore, right? So you'll have to think about all of the impacts which introducing a new feature can introduce, as well as and what are the other areas in the product which can take a hit. So that is called trade-off. And to the end users, obviously, we would want to check how many users have tapped and converted on a sponsored deal, and number of purchases being done. And trade-off is obviously users who are not, purchasing a sponsored deal and using a normal deal itself. And I would also check if the engagement on the ordinary deals has taken a hit because of these sponsored deals taking all the limelight. Right, you'll have to trade off these user experience touch points as well. Right. So, so this is the final slide. This is sort of this is sort of going beyond what is asked for, and to talk about what if the particular feature did not work, right? Then this person has provided some ideas as to how I can reverse the trade-off and then ensure that this particular feature is successful. For example, I'll just take one point here, which is for the end consumer. We just talked about how the organic deals get overshadowed by sponsored deals, right? Which is not a great user experience. No one likes to be shown ads too many ads rather. So we can cap how many number of deals an end consumer can see to help mitigate this particular risk. And of course, you can think about all such risks and trade-offs and provide a way to mitigate them as additional brownie points in the minds of the interviewers as well, right? All right, so I'm done with the case study walk through. As I mentioned earlier, this need not be Hello?
Hi, Kushaal. There's some, I guess, internet issue from your side. The voice is breaking a lot. We couldn't hear the last
All right. I'll just
conclusion
stop
part.
presenting. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. I was facing some fluctuation in the internet. I hope I was audible through the case study walkthrough.
Yeah, just the conclusion part was a bit
Okay,
breaking.
excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just reiterate what I was stating. I was just saying that the presentation of the case studies need not be in the same format in what I've just demonstrated. The key takeaway is understanding what is expected by the the interviewees and what is generally expected to be covered as key points while you're approaching a problem statement, like, I wanted to please introduce a new feature to improve something, or can you identify areas of improvement in the existing features for a product, etc. So these are the points which you'll have to remember. One is defining the problem statement, identifying the goals, and coming up with some feature ideas and presenting them in an understandable way. It could be via flowcharts. It could be, if it's a software product, it could be via wireframes and mocks of the design as well, and talking about what is a new feature which is being introduced and why, as well as talking about how would you measure its success and the trade-off, the potential trade-offs it can entail as well. So I think we are done with the case study walkthrough. So Nikunj, do you have anything more in store before we can open up for a few questions?
Yeah. So obviously the session is done. Jashank, the end of the slides have certain practice questions in different buckets. So I'll share the slides with you. You can send it to the students. Our case study, I think Jashank will sort of announce tomorrow. Over to the forum for questions and any queries you guys have.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll release the PPT you've shared with me tomorrow, or whenever we share the recording. So we'll share it along with that. And there's regarding the questions, there's a question in the chat. How should we approach HR or product managers on LinkedIn to work on an internship? And will a brief PPT, just like Kushaal sir was presenting about their company product, would grab their attention?
Yes. So let me take that. So definitely, Parth. In fact, just cold emailing or reaching out to HRs or product folks within the company, in a company which has, again, which has product manager openings, a better way to approach them without just cold emailing them is to talk about your experience, your strengths, and also provide them a proposal of an improvement which you have envisioned about their product, and present it to them in such a case study format. This definitely would attract the attention of the interviewers. So what is expected from product managers is to go above and beyond, and to take initiative, because you'll always be in a position where you'll have to manage, you work for the end consumer, right? You'll have to show that irrespective of, essentially you will have to show that you have an eye for solving end consumer problems, and an approach to do that, not just identifying it, but also presenting it in a way of introducing new features or talking about improvements. So long story short, yes, I would definitely be impressed if someone has reached out to me, not with the resume, but also talking about, what I think I've done an analysis of your company and your product, and I see a role which is opening for a product manager in your company. I would like to apply for it. I've also done some research, and these are my finds and or my opinion about and feedback about some improvements which we can do on your products. That's a great way to introduce yourself.
Right. Thank you for answering that. There's a related question to that by Ritik. Is it visible to you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
While applying for my company's opinion. Right. So yes, this would be better than not sharing anything from your side as well. If you can share sample presentations of what you've done earlier, it could help, but it has to be relevant, at least slightly relevant to the company you're applying to. For example, if you, let's say, you work for a case study for Flipkart, and then you're trying to apply for Amazon, and you can probably talk about what you've done, your work which you've done on that case study, and in the context of Amazon. But most of the times, the companies would like to see something which is relevant for their own product. Unless the company actually asks for something like a sample case study which you already worked on to be presented, the impact would not be very good, in my personal opinion. However, taking any kind of initiative to go above and beyond could help you, but keeping it relevant to the company would probably be better. And answering one more question to you, I would say to Ritik here, is that a better way to approach this problem statement, right, which is like talking to companies and sharing your case studies, is you have a template, an easily editable template, which you spent a lot of time on in crafting, and then you sort of mold the template to fit into the company which you're working. Very similar to how we do it for resumes, right? But don't spend too much time on it. And another way to approach this problem is you being sure about which companies and which sectors and markets and products you'd like to work on, and doing a very good job in applying to these companies than applying for a host of companies and products as well. So that way you can preserve some of your energy and time.
Right. Thank you for answering that question. There's a question
Sure.
regarding the projects, technical or non-technical, or courses that will help making a good resume point for PM roles.
Right. Good question again. As I was mentioning earlier, the what you have to demonstrate in your resume, and also when you talk about your background in interviews, is that you are a person of initiative who takes initiative, and it while it's great to have a technical project or a product which you've built yourself, and that going into the resume, that's great. Nothing wins you brownie points like that. You could also talk about
Kushal, I guess there's some network interruption again from.
right. I just lost power, so I just connected to
Okay,
my
yeah, no issues.
hotspot. Right. So I was saying, Sanjay. So it's great to have technical, a small, an app which you built using no code frameworks, etc. That's a great way to, great points to be added to your resume. It will win you great, attention. It need not be projects only which you can add to the resume. Anything which shows initiative, right? You started a club, you started something, you built something, and you have a whole range of hobbies, etc. That could help you, win you brownie points on your resume. If you're starting off in the product management roles, right? And Yeah, so that would definitely help. And courses, when you say they have to be relevant with respect to the role itself. So any courses which are around design or user experience, human computer interaction, interface design guidelines, or it could be even technical courses, right? And data analytic courses, anything which enhances the requirement of the role. If you're adding to your resume, it definitely would add more, yeah, it definitely would make your resume stand out.
Right. So there's one or two questions from the registration forms we floated. One of the questions is, how big is the risk of entering product management without a coding background? As a product leader, does it not get difficult to help developers without holistically knowing how to code in the first place?
Yeah.
Hi, Kushal, you there? Should I
It
repeat the
depends
question?
very widely around. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Dishank?
Yeah, you're audible.
All right, great. Yeah, there could be a slight lag though. All right. So what I was stating is, uh, yeah. So you having, or the expectation of having a technical background completely depends on the type of product which you would be working on. As Nikunj had pointed out earlier, heavy technical products like, which have very minimal end user interactions like AWS, or uh, you know it could be like payment service providers or payment product platforms, right? There you probably need to have a technical background to be able to understand what is happening on ground zero, and there's a lot of decisions being made which are technical in nature. But that said, the best PMs in the world are actually, someone who do not have technical background, and especially for building products for end consumers, right? In B2C or a lot of B2B platforms as well. What I would say what is needed is the ability to think beyond the limitations of current technology. That's where innovation comes in, as well as just having an ability to understand technology and backgrounds is the right amount of skill set needed to navigate through questions which the developers might have, etc. So a job of PM, the product manager, is not to define how something has to be done. That is something which the tech folks have to figure out, but rather the why. And you'll be focusing a lot more on the why than the how in your role, and that's how ideally it should be. If you're, I mean, yeah. So a lot of companies, the PMs also step into micromanaging what the developer is actually designing and building, but that need not be the case. That's a very that depends a lot on company to company and the product which you're working on. Long story short, you need not have a technical background to be great product managers. However, the risk of not having understanding of how technology works, right? It could be starting from the backend, I would say infrastructure. It could be the architecture itself. It's how the app is being designed, etc. From a tech perspective, if you don't have and how APIs work, etc. If you do not have an understanding of this, of basic technology nomenclature, and how technology works, then you are at a risk of you not have a lot of basic and bridge. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah, your voice sort of breaked at the end, but yeah, most of the part was audible. I get this general question for the end. Since the placement session is going on, what would be the best strategy to work upon in a
Okay.
short duration of few months? Uh, is there a lag?
Sorry, Rishang, I just got connected. Yeah.
Okay, so should
Yes,
I'll
Rishang.
repeat the question.
Please do that. Thank you.
Yeah, so since the placement session is going on, what would be the best strategy to work upon in a short duration of few months? So I
Right.
guess
I
that would
think
just summarize it.
right. If you're talking about practical knowledge, how to crack interviews, I think the best approach is to obviously study great products or products which are successful, analyze why they work, how they work, and how what makes them successful and stand out. Essentially, you are required to like distill, what is common across great products, right? And try to recreate it by doing a lot of mock interviews, which could be product around product improvement, about guest making intelligent guesses or guesstimates, coming up with like some kind of a good design, um, I mean, design improvement suggestions, doing some research, user focused research, etc. Essentially, all the all the questions which you would be typically asked in an interview, the more you practice them, along with what I mentioned around trying to understand how good products work, would be sufficient to wrap your head around how you can succeed in cracking interviews, right? Nikunj, would like to add something on top of that?
So, see, it's also dependent on the company and the product and the industry, right? There are a lot of factors that come into play because it's not as black and white. It depends on which company am I applying for, within that company, which team am I applying for, which industry is it in. So, read the job description, and that will give you a sense of what is the product manager. The title is still at a very 50,000 feet level, right? So my responsibilities at Haptic are totally different from my responsibilities at HDFC Life. My responsibilities at an earlier startup were totally. There is a overlap. There's 50-60% overlap, for sure. I'm not saying it's drastically different, but somewhere down the line, it depends on what is the company working on. Early stage startups are working on product market fit. For them, acquisition and retention are major challenges. Established companies which has a user base, they are working on monetization or growing the user base, expanding and growth, ultra growth, right? So it depends on the company, depends on, as a PM, there are different facets, right? Your understanding of design, your understanding of technology, your understanding of the business that the product is in. When I say business, I mean the industry. Obviously you picking through all these different sort of skills. PM is a very multifunctional role. So it's like jack of all trades, understanding a lot of things because you're working with all stakeholders within a company.
Right. Thank you for answering the question and your insights on this part. I guess that completes the major questions that we have. So, to conclude, thank you, Nikunj, thank you, Kushal, for taking out time and agreeing to take the session today. The session was very informative and at the same time very interesting and engaging as well. So, once again, thank you for your insights.
Thanks again. We had a great time. Don't hesitate reaching out to us. We have a LinkedIn page. You can ping us on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Yeah, all the best to everyone for the placement season.
Thanks, Ishan. Thanks, everyone. Wishing you the best. As we mentioned, follow us on LinkedIn. We have great product bites and information posted very regularly on our LinkedIn pages. You will benefit from it from the material which we already have, as well as on the website. Do check us out. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any specific questions. We can help you as much as we can.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
so really looking forward to more collaborations with you in future. And thank you
Sounds
everybody
good.
for joining in today.
Thanks again. All the best, guys. Do well. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.